Hey guys, Stakey here. Real quick, thank you all so much. Every single time I say this, I always say it, but I always mean it every single time. Thank you all so very much for your support and understanding. You don't know how much that means to me. To know that so many of you understand that, hey, this is, real life sometimes gets in the way, and we totally understand. And yeah, just that understanding from all of you, it just warms my heart. It just fills me with so much joy. And I just want to thank you guys for all of that, all those kind words and your support. It means everything to me. With that said, next week I unfortunately will not be able to record because that will be my first week of training. I had thought I'd be working already, but apparently not. There was just a lot of paperwork and background checking to do for the job, so that was going on, and I didn't have any set date or anything. But finally, they've given me a date. That's on Monday, the 4th of October. I don't know how long that's gonna be for, or exactly how long in the day it's gonna run to. So I'm gonna give myself next week off. If I can record, I definitely will. But mostly I will keep you guys posted on Twitter. If anything changes, that will be the place I will post it to first, just to let you guys know what's going on. But as of right now, no video on Friday, next Friday, I mean. So for now, that's what it's gonna be like. Okay, and I think that's kind of it. Actually, that's like the biggest thing that's been going on. And yeah, if you hear that I'm kind of reading a little rushed in the audio, that's because there's been a lot of noise going on in my neighborhood. I don't know what the heck has been going on, but it's just been like literally nonstop helicopters and airplanes and dogs barking and ice cream trucks going by and people with loud ass mufflers on their car. I don't know what the heck was going on this week, but it was so difficult to record that at some point I just got really frustrated and started yelling into my pillow. I think I even have a clip of that. I'm not sure if I deleted it in my bloopers. I hope I didn't. I'm gonna go back and check right now. I haven't finished even editing the audio yet. I'm such a mess right now, guys. I literally have been struggling to get this audio recorded. Chapter 9 has been such a crazy time for me. It's just I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from trying to record this in peace, but nobody lets me. God damn it. Anywho, yeah, if you hear me sound a little rushed, that's why. I'm just trying to get as quickly get through the reading as quickly as I can without there being noise in the background that's super audible. But yeah, I'm sorry if it bugs you a little bit that it's not like my normal reading. But it is what it is. I'm sorry, y'all. Anywho, thanks once again, guys. Don't forget I have all the links to Witch of Writing's story down in the description. Check out her Tumblr, her Wattpad, her Archive of Our Own, and her Quotev. Check out those platforms that she has that story on and let her know that you are loving the story. Yeah. And so on to chapter 9. See what I mean about noise? At least I'm almost done. Anywho, I hope you guys enjoy. Chapter 9, here we go. For the first time in a while, you woke up with excitement buzzing under your skin rather than exhaustion or stress. The concert was tonight. You turned off your phone alarm before stretching and rubbing the sleep from your eyes. Despite going to bed in a sour mood because of Bakugou's attitude, you felt refreshed and awake. Thinking of your temporary roommate, you glanced up at your bedroom door, wondering if today would be the day you'd find your couch empty and cold. Grabbing some work clothes, you slipped out of your bedroom and peeked over the side of the couch to see, to your relief, Bakugou asleep and huddled under your blanket. His rude behavior last night didn't mean you wanted him to disappear just yet, not until you mustered up the courage to tell him how you felt at least. His face caught your attention, however, and not for the usual reasons. It was marred with a frown and furrowed brows, as though nightmares plagued him. You briefly debated on whether or not to wake him up, but concluded that it might be best to let him sleep if he awoke with his bad attitude intact. You also took extra care with your steps not to trip over his blanket again. After dressing for work, packing some extra makeup, and grabbing your concert outfit you'd set aside the previous night, you scribbled out a small note on the counter with the help of the dictionary. Bakugou could stew in his grumpiness, but you didn't have to stoop to his level. Back late. You almost wrote out sorry, but scribbled the half-finished word out, remembering that you didn't do anything wrong and there was nothing you should have apologized for. With your arms full, and one last over-the-shoulder glance at the sleeping man on your couch, you left the apartment and headed to work. You refused to let anything ruin today. Not long after you left, Bakugou woke up to an empty and silent apartment. He groaned and squinted at the time displayed on the microwave in the kitchen, concluding that you must have already left for work. It was some of the worst sleep he'd gotten since he arrived here. He'd gone to sleep pissed off, his mind muddled with agitation and thoughts of you that he desperately tried to ignore. So much for his idea of waking up back home to avoid feeling shitty. Rather than get up and attempt to find something to entertain himself for an entire day alone, he mumbled, "Fuck this," and flopped back down onto the sofa in an attempt to go back to sleep. Without his normal daily responsibilities, Bakugou could afford to sleep in once or twice. You, on the other hand, were having a pretty great morning. Ignoring a possibly moody Bakugou back at your apartment, you walked to work with your concert attire. You decided to stop in a small coffee shop on the way to the office. Leaving early for work had its advantages. While waiting in line, a barista walked forward and made an announcement. "On behalf of the owner's birthday today, everything will be half off for the next hour." A few people in line clapped, and the owner behind the counter brushed away the generous gesture with a smile. Discounted coffee sounded great, and maybe you'd treat yourself to a pastry too. Before walking into your office building, you ran into another bit of good luck. One of the cutest dogs you'd ever seen ran up to you, a leash dangling behind it on the sidewalk. Its tail wagged excitedly, and its tongue lolled out of its mouth as it sniffed at your feet before pawing on your shins, apparently begging for scratches and pats. "Aw, where's your owner? Did you run away? Oh, you're so cute." I miss having a pet sometimes. Eventually, a woman ran up and apologized to you for her dog. "Oh, no worries, he's very cute." You bent down to pet him one last time before the woman grabbed the leash off the ground and continued on her morning jog down the sidewalk. "Maybe I can keep this good luck going for the entire day," you hoped to yourself before finally walking into work and settling in for the day. After several hours of tossing and turning, barely getting any more sleep, Bakugou just resigned to wake up and get the day over with. He dropped the blanket to the floor rather than folding it like he normally did, agitation still fresh on his mind. Walking into the kitchen, he saw your note and sighed. Even though he pissed you off last night due to his inability to control his reactions around you, the note proved you still thought to be considerate. He noticed the scribbling and wondered what you scratched out. Maybe you misspelled something or wrote the character wrong. Either way, Bakugou didn't think too hard on it as he attempted to distract himself for another day. While eating a simple breakfast, Bakugou considered what might be going on back home since his disappearance. There was no doubt in his mind that everyone was probably looking for him, or at least brainstorming ways to get him home. But what was the villain's motive? Was this planned by a large syndicate to get him specifically out of the way for some large-scale attack? Or was this the work of a lone villain with their own selfish motivations? He thought back years ago during his first year at UA when he was kidnapped by the League of Villains. Even when the pro-heroes knew his location and that he was alive, it had caused a massive media uproar for a student to be snatched up from right under the noses of his teachers. Kirishima, Deku, Aizawa, All Might, everyone banded together to rescue him. Bakugou would never forget that day for as long as he lived. It was the first time he truly accepted that he couldn't defeat every obstacle and win every fight by himself. That grabbing the hand of some dumbass friend who risked his future hero career and life to save his own was his only chance at escape. That idea alone kept him going. Kirishima had stuck by him through all of that League of Villains bullshit, had graduated with him, had partnered with him during their early days as pros. Kirishima wasn't the smartest guy around, but Bakugou knew that he'd never give up trying to find him or bring him home. He could leave the logistics up to Deku and Ponytail. He wondered if they were all right. He wondered if they were fighting for their lives with him gone, his absence opening up the perfect opportunity to overwhelm the other heroes. He wondered if they'd had time to even find the damn villain responsible if things had turned into a shit show. Maybe he placed too much stock in his importance, his ego and pride blinding him on occasion to how much others truly depended on him. With a constant barrage of fans and channeling All Might's signature confidence in assuring people that everything would be okay, Bakugou occasionally lost sight of other things that actually mattered. It didn't happen nearly as often now as when he was younger and just starting out, luckily, but it still happened.
Of course shit is fine. Why am I worried? They can handle themselves.
What was the point in worrying about nothing he could directly affect until he got back home? He was agitated enough without considering hypothetical situations. Okay, fine. He was concerned about the state of things back home no matter how much he tried to deny it. To bring his mind elsewhere and pass some time, because he'd likely be completely alone for the entire day with you at your concert, Bakugou got dressed and headed outside to start an excessively long workout session. Somehow, your day was turning out far better than the previous one. Your stupid coworker who claimed your idea as his own hit you up more than once to ask questions, which you promptly ignored or sent a smiley face emoji. Eventually, you'd swoop in and save the day, gaining the proper credit you deserved, but letting him flop like a panicked fish for a while sounded pretty satisfying. You were about to head out to lunch when one of your non-shitty coworkers pulled you aside. "Hey you, we're heading down the street for lunch to that new place that opened up. Wanna come?" Rather than grab your usual sandwich, you decided to go a bit out of your comfort zone and join them for a change. "Yeah, sure. I have a really good feeling about today," you thought to yourself as you ate with your coworkers. Your phone buzzed in your purse and you already knew who it was before her name popped up on the screen. Concert, concert, concert! OMG, I really need this. To just get out and have a drink and relax, it's been too long. What did you bring to wear? You can keep your work clothes in my car. Something that makes me feel pretty good. LOL. Push-up bra? Yas, get it. Don't tell nobody. Shh. You're allowed to feel good about yourself, no shame. You were silently grateful that she didn't mention your temporary roommate situation, but you had a gut feeling she'd bring it up tonight when you couldn't escape. As for your outfit choice, you didn't consider it too flirty, but you were single and didn't often have the opportunity to dress up, so why not? Bakugou wasn't really anything to you outside of an acquaintance, right? He certainly wasn't your boyfriend, despite what people at the amusement park last weekend assumed. Your crush on him hadn't faded, but you hadn't quite worked up the bravery to spill your guts to him quite yet. In addition, his own feelings towards you seemed strictly platonic from your observations, so tonight you planned to go out and have fun and maybe even meet someone interesting. Well, at least someone who belonged in this universe. Meanwhile, Bakugou was finishing up his exercises in the park he designated as his workout spot. The shade from the trees was nice, in addition to when the occasional breeze blew through. Few people interrupted him since nearly everyone was at work or school, and he could keep an eye on his surroundings for anyone or anything suspicious. Or maybe he was just desperate to avoid feeling bored out of his mind. He hadn't talked to anyone today. That wasn't unusual thus far, but rather than wait until 7 tonight when you normally got back to the apartment, Bakugou would likely be alone until he went to sleep. Since you were the only person he'd really talked to while he was here and understood his circumstance, there wasn't much else he could do. The thought of not speaking to you for the entire day nagged at him like a buzzing fly. He silently wondered if you were still pissed off at him from the previous night. Maybe the concert would put you in a good mood if that asshole at work didn't steal any more of your ideas. Feeling the pang of hunger in his stomach, Bakugou made to stand up and head back to your apartment for a late lunch when movement caught his eye off to the left. He stopped to cut his eyes to the side. and staring back at him was a kid peeking over the side of the bench, his hands gripping the metal handle. Bakugou looked around but didn't see any other adults nearby. Was he lost? Dealing with kids was not on Bakugou's list of proficient skills.
Give me my ball back.
The kid popped up from his squatting position to point down at Bakugou's feet. Not understanding his words, Bakugou just followed his finger and bent down to see a bright red ball hiding under the bench right between his shoes. Reaching down, he pulled it out and held it up as the kid's eyes followed the ball with a focused stare. Without a word, Bakugou tossed the ball to the end of the bench. After picking it up and sticking his tongue out at him for who knew what reason other than to be a brat, the kid scurried off to a group of similarly aged kids playing behind him on a small playground. Kind of reminded Bakugou of himself at that age. A brat. He cut his eyes to the left, then right, then looked down at the palm of his hand and activated his quirk. It was just enough to emanate a faint glow. Bakugou silently wondered if going too long without using your quirk might have adverse effects. He'd never gone more than a week without popping off some small blasts, at least. The thought left him wanting time alone in your apartment to use his quirk in addition to grabbing some lunch. With that final thought and no more interruptions, Bakugou hopped off the bench and walked down the shaded sidewalk, wondering how much longer he'd need to endure this disruption to his normal life. When it was finally time for you to clock out of work, you were basically buzzing with excitement. Your friend would be there to pick you up in about half an hour and then drop you off when the concert was over. You'd have to watch how much she drank because you were not about to get into the car with someone too drunk to drive. Grabbing your things, you went into the bathroom on your floor and changed into your concert outfit, stuffing your work clothes into your bag. You pulled out the extra bit of makeup you packed and stood in front of the sink to make your everyday look a bit more dramatic with heavier eyeliner and darker lipstick. This was something that you wanted to do for yourself. If no one else noticed how you looked, that wasn't your problem or concern. Ooh, have a hot date? A coworker walked in, but paused to look at you before she went into one of the stalls. I wish. I'm headed to a concert with a friend tonight. I don't get out too often, so I figured I'd take the opportunity to dress up a bit. You responded, while adding a second coat of mascara. Ah, well, have fun either way. She called as you waved before heading out the door and down the elevator to wait in the lobby for your friend to show up. When your phone buzzed to tell you she was outside, you practically skipped out the door and into her car parked around the corner. Oh my god, it's been too long! She screeched before reaching across the center panel of the car to hug you awkwardly. Dang, you look good! I like that shirt. I know, and thanks, I don't wear it often enough, but I bought it, so I should wear it, right? Leaning back in the passenger seat, you got a good look at your friend. Her outfit was a bit more risque than your own, with a silky patterned top that sat on her shoulders, high-waisted skirt, and boots with an impressively tall heel. She always dressed a bit more dramatically than you did, not caring what anyone thought, and you had to admire her confidence. She groaned and shifted her car into the proper gear before speeding down the road towards the concert venue. Work has been so shit lately. Mind if I unload? All I have is my dog, and she's great and all, very cute, you know that, but she just looks at me with that dopey face begging for treats half the time. You nodded while staring at the shifting colors of the sunset sky above the city. Yeah, go for it. I've had quite an interesting week myself. Yes, you have. I'm gonna make you tell me all about this guy problem that doesn't sound like the worst problem to have. Her tone was laced with something that told you it would be fruitless to argue. The two of you were friends back in college. Despite studying in the same major, you both ended up working at competing companies with her office and apartment all the way across town. Oh, by the way, thanks for driving. You know how much I hate dealing with traffic. I don't mind. Plus, you live kind of close by, right? It'll be less driving for me to drive across town once versus you picking me up and driving back over here, dropping me off at home, and then going home yourself, right? You hummed in agreement, your mind wondering what Bakugou was doing right now without you to entertain him or keep him busy. When 7 rolled around, Bakugou almost instinctively looked over at the front door while he cooked dinner before he remembered that he'd be eating and spending the evening alone. Looking down at the warm food on the stove, he realized he made too much, his subconscious thinking about your portion in addition to his own. With a frustrated sigh, he dug through your cabinets until he found some resealable containers. After scooping out his own dinner, Bakugou piled the rest into the container and stuffed it in the fridge. Maybe you'd be hungry when you got back, or you could just take it to work tomorrow rather than let it go to waste. He tried eating in complete silence, but the lack of banter was driving him crazy, so he slid in the anime he started watching the other day and let it play in the background. Hearing the familiarity of Japanese, even if it was just through an anime, gave him a sense of comfort in a place where he felt like a complete outsider. The fact that you tried so hard to include him in conversation and make him feel welcome made Bakugou appreciate the effort more than he expected he would. Any attempt at distracting himself failed to make time move any faster, however. It seemed to move quickly when you were around, but now that he had sat alone in your apartment for almost an entire day, everything felt as though it was being tugged along by a snail determined to come in last place. If asked, he would deny that feeling until the day he died. "We're here!" After your friend parked her car in the garage nearby, with a bit of in and out adjustment, and even then her parking still wasn't perfectly straight, the two of you got out and headed towards the front doors along with other groups of random people headed in the same direction. You showed the bouncer your ID and got a neon green wristband strapped to your wrist while another security guard searched your bag for weapons and contraband. These things always had tight security, and though it was annoying, you appreciated the extra precaution. They always get my arm hair caught in these things. You winced as you slid the wristband until it moved freely, pulling a hair or two with it. And no heavy drinking tonight. You're driving, don't forget. I will shove a cup of water in your face and drink your alcohol. She grumbled before agreeing when you elbowed her in the side. I know! That was the deal. Now come on, I want to find the merch table. The floor was hard black concrete, perfect for cleaning up spilled beer or other fluids. The lights were bright as the opening band started setting up their equipment on stage, testing out the microphone and tapping on the drum set. It smelled lightly of cigarette smoke and beer, scents that would only become more fetid as the night wore on. You skipped out on buying a shirt this time. You had enough band shirts which you wore as pajamas and didn't need to add to the growing collection. The two of you walked up to the crowded bar to order some drinks, deciding to get a head start on a bit of drinking before the crowds made the lines too long. A guy had his back turned to you while he helped someone else with their order, but when he turned around and handed them their card back, he turned to you and asked, "What'll it be?" Honestly, he wasn't hard on the eyes. You started a tab while your friend paid cash, the bartender flashing you a smile as he made your drink with deft hands that told you he was well versed in making hundreds of drinks in one night. As you turned away, your friend nudged you in the side. "Oh my god, he's totally flirting with you! Girl, jump on it! Unless that guy you're obsessed over is still hanging around your place." She batted her eyelashes like a cartoon villain, attempting to look innocent. You nearly choked as you took a sip of your drink. What? No. God, no. Also, he's still here, and I know you won't let it die while I can't run away. She knew you hadn't been on a date in a while, and was just trying to push you in at least one direction with a hot guy as the destination. He totally is. I can read body language. What, you not interested? You bit your lip as she analyzed you with narrowed eyes. You considered Bakugou back at your apartment, which was honestly dumb because the two of you weren't dating. Far from it, considering how last night ended. Hell, you didn't even know if he even considered you a friend, or just someone he had to put up with and was getting tired of you. Well, let me know if you make a decision, because I'll grab him up if you don't, your friend said, dragging you closer to the stage as the opening band finished setting up. The main band you wanted to see was the last act, so you'd have to stand through a couple of other bands before they came on. Taking another sip, you looked back over at the bar to see the bartender give you a wink before you turned around quickly, ears burning. Oh god, he is flirting with me. The first band just sounded all right, nothing spectacular. It got your head bobbing as the floor vibrated with the bass from the heavy speakers up front. By the time the first band was done, the energy and excitement in the room had doubled, as well as the acrid smell of cigarette smoke as people came in from smoking outside. You'd have to wash your clothes and shower when you got home for sure. Dumping your empty can of cheap beer in the trash, bar drinks were way more expensive than just buying a pack at the grocery store. You went back to the bar and ordered another. The same cute bartender took your order.
You like the band?
He asked, popping open another can of beer for you. He wasn't nearly as handsome as Bakugou, but you couldn't deny that he was attractive. Oh, they were okay. I'm mostly here for the last band, you replied, taking the cold beer in your hands. He nodded before turning to another customer.
Well, I'll be here.
Fuck. Nope, not imagining it. Definitely flirting. It felt almost weird to flirt back, as though you were doing something wrong, even though you were still single, just with a smart, funny, hot, smartass, and heroic guy whom you'd never meet again currently hanging out at your home, none the wiser to your feelings. No big deal. While the second band set up, your friend bugged you a bit more about the bartender while also prodding into your personal life. So please, tell me what's up with this mystery guy, huh? You tapped your nails on the side of the beer can, condensation running down the pads of your fingers as you considered exactly what to reveal. Okay, so you started, wanting to open up about the dilemma in a vague way. He's been staying with me for the past week. Circumstances were sorta bizarre, I'll just leave it at that. She gave you a curious look, but you ignored her. Don't know when he'll be able to leave. Didn't have a place to stay, so I put him up. Seemed like the right thing to do. I didn't plan on getting a stupid crush or whatever. He's just funny and stupidly attractive, and I think we get along pretty well. Thinking back to the previous night and his unexpected attitude made you reconsider your unofficial acquaintance label. We have more in common than I figured we would. What? You stopped rambling when she gave you a Cheshire cat grin. You never struck me as someone to hold back what's on your mind, so what's stopping you from just telling him you like him or whatever? She asked. Your toes wiggled in your boots as you tried to phrase the thoughts that you'd told no one besides your mom until this point. I don't know when he'll leave. Neither does he. He doesn't live here. He's from Japan. But it's not even the fact that it's temporary that holds me back. I think it's more the thought of rejection, or how awkward it would be if I told him, but we still have to live together for a few days. He's kind of a closed-off person. Doesn't seem like someone to spill how he's feeling. You shrugged your shoulders and took a sip of your beer as people moved around you and the band up on stage did a sound test. Listen to me. She clamped a hand down on your shoulder while staring you in the eyes. You are so dang smart and pretty, and anyone would be super dumb to turn you down for at least one date. Anyone would be lucky to date you, I swear. You're one of my best friends and I wouldn't bullshit you. You deserve to be happy, so what do you want to do? The words flew out of your mouth faster than you were expecting. I want to touch his butt. You clamped a hand down on your mouth as your friend sputtered around laughing and tried desperately not to spill her own drink. If you were an anime character, your face would be glowing red right now. Okay, let me lay it out for you like this. She started. You like him, right? You nodded, your hand still clamped tightly over your mouth to prevent your subconscious thoughts from escaping. He doesn't know you like him, right? You nodded again. Is it really that scary to put yourself out there just so you at least know, rather than let your brain think up dumb excuses for the worst outcome? You've been on dates, had relationships. Why would this be different even if it's temporary? A bubble of insecurity, probably brought up from the alcohol, replaced any potential embarrassing statements. He's out of my league anyway. She pinched your arm for that one. Nope, we're not doing this. What did I just say? She moved her hand around erratically in front of your face for emphasis. You're a catch. You're nice and considerate, obvious from the fact that you're letting him stay with you. If he sees everything I see and still says no, he's not worth your time. He'd be a ding-dong. Of course she was right about that. You wanted to be with someone who felt the same about you as you did about them, and her enthusiasm reminded you a bit of your mom. She was like a walking self-care package that could always boost you up to your fullest. But he won't be here long. I don't want to start something and then have him just leave. She gave a heavy sigh, swishing around the last drops of beer in her own can. I think you just want me to say what you want to hear. That you shouldn't put yourself out there, and obviously I'm not going to say that. All I'm hearing are excuses. Hey, watch it! A guy bumped into her as he walked towards the bar, not bothering to look back. Ugh. Anyway, you gotta figure out what you want ultimately. But if you don't at least try, you might regret it, you know? Never know what he might say, especially someone who puts up a wall. Her advice really did mirror that of your mom. Sometimes you've got to just take a leap and risk the hurt that comes with it. The question was whether or not you'd feel worse not doing anything, or trying something and getting heartbroken as a result. At this very moment, you didn't know the answer, so for now, you focused on forgetting about it with the help of music and alcohol. While you drowned your troubles in the beat of the music, Bakugou kept eyeing the clock on your microwave far too often. He'd look up, and only 10 minutes had passed. He attempted to read his book, but the quiet nagged at him again, and he found himself missing your laughter before he shut the book with a snap and tossed it on the other side of the couch. While watching a few more episodes of Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, he'd have to check if it existed back home because it was actually interesting. Bakugou flipped through the dictionary you bought to learn a few more common phrases and words. When he went back home, at least he could say he learned something while away. Eventually, his mind wandered to you and the concert. He wondered where the venue was, what the other bands sounded like, if you were having a good time, if you were still pissed at him from the previous night.
So dumb. Fine. I'll fucking apologize.
He practically yelled the words to an empty room, knowing no one could hear him. Saying sorry and admitting personal fault was something Bakugou rarely did, but considering you were the only damn person he could talk to, and the thought of you looking at him like you did last night made him clench his jaw. He'd suck it up and say it. He never thought he'd actually miss getting dragged around town by Kaminari, but being stuck in this apartment without transportation while you went out without him dragged his mood down once more. Obviously, he wouldn't tell you what to do, or keep you from doing shit without him, but Bakugou silently admitted that he actually enjoyed your company. Things were at least lively when you were around, standing up to his challenges or reacting to his sass to get a rise out of him. Few people could make him laugh like he did last night. Then his self-directed anger reared its head and ruined the good mood. He needed to keep things civil for his own sanity in this shitty situation. When it was finally time for the last and main band to come on, the band you came here specifically to see, you grabbed some water from the bar to help cut down on the alcohol that made your chest feel warm and your laughter come out a little more easily. Your friend took the hint that you didn't want to talk about Bakugou anymore to your relief, but every time you turned towards the bar, that bartender flashed you a smile. The drum beat reminded you of Bakugou, and you thought he'd be amazing as a drummer if he hadn't decided to pursue hero work. The sound bounced around in your chest as the crowd, now full and packed in like sardines on the floor, jumped around and sang along with the vocalist. Some held their phones up to take pictures or videotape the performance, which annoyed you because their stupid screens blocked the stage for everyone behind them. In your opinion, if someone was busy with their phone, then they weren't enjoying the live show to the fullest extent. At one point, someone even crowd-surfed through the sea of people, hands going up to keep the obviously drunk guy from falling to the floor. The energy was high and the music was loud, and while they were on stage, you forgot about Bakugou and work and all your other responsibilities and problems. You needed tonight, so you savored every second. By the time they finished their encore and finally ended the set for good, you were sweaty. Your hair stuck to the back of your neck, your throat was sore, and your voice was hoarse from singing. You had no idea what time it was, but you knew it was late when people started filing out of the room and flooded towards the bar to close out their tabs. Your cheeks flushed and your ears rang. A buzzed, adrenaline-filled smile lit up your face as you walked over to do the same. The bartender that had been giving you drinks all night was, of course, the one that came up to you.
Enjoy the show?
You heard him ask through your ringing ears. Yeah, it was really great. I'm glad I came. Just gotta close out my tab. He nodded.
Sure thing,
he said, while handing back your card ID and a receipt to sign.
Say, you busy now?
You looked up as your hands fiddled with your wallet. Huh? The unexpected question caught you off guard.
I asked if you were free right now. I just gotta clean up and I'm done. Wanna continue this back and forth somewhere that isn't a bar?
Almost immediately, you started to get a bad vibe from the bartender. A shift in his demeanor now that the two of you were mostly alone, while your friend waited for you by the door. You'd been drinking, but you weren't stupid. No, thanks. I'm with my friend, so...
I can take you home,
he replied with a little more insistence. The questionable twinkle in his eye sealed your decision. That no is solid. Your voice was firm, even if your step wobbled a bit, as you turned around to leave him behind, not bothering to look back as he called after you. His voice, which now sounded annoyed, faded into the noise of the crowd as the two of you walked out into the brisk midnight air towards the parking garage. After you made sure that your friend was sober enough to drive, the two of you headed towards a fast food place a few blocks away to grab some greasy burgers and fries to absorb the alcohol. It was highly likely that Bakugou was asleep, and the last thing you wanted to do was wake him up by rummaging around in the kitchen for a late dinner.
Oh, gross. That guy was a jerk,
your friend said through a mouth stuffed full with hamburger meat of questionable origin. The two of you were sitting in the dark parking lot, and the dashboard clock read close to midnight. Your head swam lightly from the alcohol, but you weren't drunk, just giggly and a bit wobbly on your feet. Yeah. What is it with guys trying too hard immediately when they meet someone? Or not taking no for an answer the first time around? You took a bite out of your cheeseburger, wiping away a bit of ketchup from your mouth so it wouldn't drip on your shirt. Who knows? But here, she stated while taking a stick of gum out of her purse. Better take this before you get home to Mr. Hot Stuff. You almost choked on your soda as she doubled over laughing. Oh my god, shut up! We aren't gonna make out or anything. Far from it, probably. Like I said earlier, never know what might happen. You just shoved some fries in her face while she complained you were spilling salt in her car, despite her being just as messy an eater. But really though, beer and burgers make your breath rank as hell. Take the gum. The two of you burst out laughing as you took the gum anyway. An hour earlier, back at your apartment, Bakugou turned out all the lights and attempted to sleep. But he kept tossing and turning, unable to get comfortable, and it had nothing to do with the fact that he was still sleeping on a couch that didn't belong to him. He felt restless because you weren't back yet, just like when you went out for a walk and he wasn't sure when you'd return. Some small urge to make sure you were all right and came back to the apartment in one piece kept him from falling asleep.
Fuck this, she better get back soon,
he mumbled. He kept most of the lights turned off even as he picked up his book to read. His eyelids felt heavy, but Bakugou knew he'd just keep flipping back and forth on the couch cushions until he knew you weren't out in the middle of the night. Too tired to analyze how protective he felt towards you, Bakugou focused on the book while listening for the now familiar click of the front door lock. Bye! Your friend screeched as you wobbled out of the car. Let me know how things go. You're hot and don't you dare think otherwise. Shut up, you kiss ass. You laughed and were about to slam the door closed before leaning back down. Text me when you get back so I know you didn't drift into oncoming traffic. She raised a thumbs up to you before you closed the door and waved goodbye to her retreating car. Walking up to your apartment, you kept your balance by holding onto the guide rail, the effects of the alcohol just enough to make you feel slightly dizzy. You stopped at your front door and stared at the door handle with far more intensity than it needed. Oh, I hope he's not still mad. I don't want to deal with that right now. Today was so good. Maybe he'll be asleep and I can just sneak in. That meant the entire day would have passed by without speaking to Bakugou at all. But if his attitude hadn't dissipated by now, maybe it was for the best, as hard as that pill was to swallow. It'll be fine. Just don't say anything dumb and I'll be golden. Shit, I gotta shower too. Ugh, I smell like cigarettes and sweat. Oh, and drink water. Don't want a hangover. Now I'm rambling. Fuck. I'm doomed. Contrary to what you hoped, Bakugou was definitely not asleep. As soon as he heard the door creak open, he hopped off the couch quickly before catching himself and slowing down as he rubbed his eyes, and met you in the front hallway. He watched you lock the door and attempt to take off your shoes. You must not have noticed him yet, but he certainly noticed you, or at least what you were wearing. He normally saw you in pajamas and drab work attire. Not that any of it looked particularly bad, but the outfit you wore now, which appeared more put together and outgoing than he'd seen before, looked good. Good on you specifically. Your hair was kind of messy, and your makeup was more dramatic than he'd seen before, but none of it looked out of place. All of it wrapped together made him clench his jaw and dig his nails into the palms of his hands, stuffed into his pajama pants pockets, with the realization that he was staring again. By the time you got one boot off, you finally looked up and noticed him, a bit startled to see Bakugou staring at you from a few feet away. He looked sleepy. Shit, did I wake him up? Oh, wait, hold on. You fumbled around in your bag for your phone and pulled it out. Hey, didn't know you'd still be up or not. I tried to be quiet. You joked, holding up a finger to your mouth while smiling. Bakugou nodded while he watched you take off your other boot, leaning against the wall for balance.
Hey, have fun?
He asked, hoping this meant you were no longer mad and he'd no longer need to apologize and you weren't just giving him that smile to be nice and civil. Your voice sounded slightly hoarse when you answered. Yes, it was really great, totally worth it, and I hadn't seen my friend in a while, so I'm glad we hung out. She's weird, but funny. I think you'd like her. For some reason, Bakugou felt a wave of relief blow through him at the statement, but he kept silent as you continued rambling. The bands were great. Well, the first band was just okay, not like amazing or whatever. Last band, the one you listened to, fucking just great. So good. You were waving your hands around dramatically the whole time, and Bakugou could tell you were even more off balance than usual. He wondered if you'd been drinking. There seemed to be something slightly off about you in the way your words slurred just a little.
If you're hungry, there's leftovers in the fridge. I cooked earlier. Made too much.
The deer-caught-in-headlights look you gave him at his statement made his eye twitch from how scrutinized he felt under your gaze. Food? You made me food? Aw, thanks. But we swung by some fast food place on the way back, so I'm good. Wow, I sound like shit. Too much singing. You made a fake coughing noise in an attempt to clear your throat before wrinkling up your nose. Ew. Ugh, I smell like cigarettes too. Oh, I need a shower. But yeah, super great. Oh, well, aside from this one guy, I guess, he was gross. Blech. But whatever, doesn't matter. Still totally worth it. Bakugou watched you wave your hand around dismissively at the comment, but it didn't skip past him. Setting your bag down on the kitchen table, you wobbled a bit even without heels, which confirmed that you'd probably been drinking, but you didn't seem full-on drunk at least.
What guy?
Oh, the guy? You scoffed and rolled your eyes. He was a bartender. He started out alright, pretty cute, flirting and shit. But when I went to leave, he turned sleazy and gross. I don't take shit though. Nothing happened. I'm tough. Bakugou watched your lopsided grin appear while his own disappeared as he was overcome with the sudden urge to knock this guy in the jaw. You failed to notice his annoyed expression and the thin line of his lips. Instead, intently focused on finishing your normal nightly routine and falling into bed. But anyway, wow. Yeah, I'm sleepy. God, I have work tomorrow. So dumb. Groaning, you thought about having to wake up early and wobbled into your bedroom to grab the first pair of makeshift pajamas you saw before brushing past Bakugou, who hadn't moved at all, and closed the door. His red eyes followed you even after you disappeared into the bathroom. At least you seemed to have had a fun day, while his was exceptionally boring. And maybe it was the alcohol putting you in a good mood, but he'd take it so long as you were no longer pissed at him. He'd finally be able to sleep now that you were back, but figured he could wait until you went to sleep yourself. As he sat down on the couch, he ran his hands through his blonde hair and took a deep breath to calm down. The thought of someone acting like an asshole to you, and not the tolerable kind of asshole he was, made him want to blast this bartender guy in the face. He thought back to the guy at the amusement park, and hell, even your stupid coworker. The urge to defend you bubbled up in his gut, but before he could swallow the feeling, he heard a slightly off but familiar sound from the bathroom. You were singing again, but it didn't sound quite right. It was slightly off-key, and the words slurred together, probably inhibited by your drinking. It wasn't even terrible, and if anything, it sounded kind of funny. At least you seemed like a decently fun drinking buddy who would know how to have a good time. Unlike Kaminari, who got them all kicked out of a bar the previous year when he fell off a table and shocked several patrons on accident. But your singing didn't distract him completely from thinking about how long it had been since he'd punched someone, or something, and how this bartender you met seemed like the perfect target. He failed to realize how worked up he was getting over the whole thing. At least you weren't hurt and made it back home safely, and you were in a good mood. He had no plans to ruin it this time because he slept like shit and felt like shit for a good portion of the day. Maybe tomorrow would be better. Bakugou hated thinking in such depressing terms, but at this point he just assumed he'd keep waking up on your couch, not knowing what else to do. When you came out of the bathroom, you still looked a bit unsteady on your feet, but also more refreshed. You giggled to yourself, and Bakugou wondered if you actually found something funny, or if alcohol made you into one of those giggly drunks. You brightened up when you saw him, and smiled, and it made his heart squeeze in his chest, a feeling he chose to ignore just like all the others. After disappearing into your room with your clothes, before coming out empty-handed, you took out your phone again and faced Bakugou on the couch. Much better. I'm gonna drink a glass of water before bed and then we can go to sleep. I'm sure you're tired. Do you mind if I sit with you? He looked at you with a quirked brow and shrugged.
It's your couch. Do what you want.
You just rolled your eyes and wobbled into the kitchen. He had a sneaking suspicion that your normally questionable balance would only worsen with the addition of alcohol. Bakugou stood up and steered you back towards the couch while saying,
Sit. I go.
In your language. Studying that dictionary earlier was already paying off. For whatever reason, you seemed to find this hilarious and started giggling again. Yes, sir, you answered with an exaggerated salute. He scoffed before pouring you a glass of ice water in the kitchen. After handing it to you, he sat on the opposite side of the couch, very conscious of the distance between the two of you, to make sure you drank it all. If you woke him up groaning about a headache and a hangover, it wasn't going to be his fault. Arigato, you said with a lopsided smile before taking a sip. Bakugou couldn't help but snicker at your drawn-out pronunciation. Hey, can I ask you something? He turned to you, now unable to avoid eye contact. You smiled, but felt nerves bubble up in your stomach. This was probably a bad idea. Okay, so I'm just gonna ramble, I think, and blame the alcohol later. Liquid courage makes people do dumb stuff sometimes. Bakugou stared at you with those piercing eyes of his, unmoving. You continued. Are we friends? That's probably a dumb question to ask because no one asks people that, but I don't know. I want to know the answer rather than just assume one way or the other. You haven't been here long, but that's okay. I feel like we get along pretty well, and I think you're funny when you laugh, when I'm clumsy, and I think I like hanging out with you, Bakugou. You're pretty fucking cool, and not just because you have explosion powers. You forced a smile on your face and bit your lip despite feeling like you might barf after saying all that. It's okay if you don't want to answer or, anything. Bakugou was honestly stunned at the question. Whatever he thought you were going to ask, it certainly wasn't a question inquiring about friendship of all things. Were you friends? He pondered this for a moment while his eyes wandered to your lips and how your teeth tugged at the skin before tearing his eyes away from the frustrating distraction. Upon contemplating how the two of you had interacted and managed to get along despite the circumstances, Bakugou found it odd how you managed to keep him in a positive mood. He thought about how boring and, dare he think very silently to himself, lonely the day felt without you nagging him about something or offering to keep him entertained. Bakugou enjoyed your company at least. He ignored every other feeling that threatened to visualize itself in his brain, though. Friendship had always eluded Bakugou growing up. People usually just followed him around, tagged along behind him, or were too scared to voice how they actually felt. Before UA, he didn't really have friends so much as stooges who never criticized him, bowing down before his aggressive personality and flashy quirk. Maybe they wanted to be his friends, but Bakugou didn't value their company, only their loyalty. Then he attended UA and everything started to shift. He met Kirishima, whom he now considered his best friend. He realized that putting other people down only limited his capacity to recognize his own weaknesses and faults. He got his ego in check, for the most part. If you had asked him 10 years ago this exact same question, he would have no doubt laughed in your face. But he thought about how he actually liked spending time with you and enjoyed your company. You talked about dumb shit with him just like his friends back home. Besides, if he said no, then things would just turn miserable again, and he'd lose sleep for 2 nights in a row, knowing you wouldn't have asked the question if you weren't hoping for a positive answer. Bakugou refused to admit to more, not just openly, but to himself. But friends? Yeah, fine. Fuck it. Whatever. What harm would it do? He hated lying anyway.
Yeah, I guess we kind of are. You're just as weird as my friends back home anyway.
He finally answered. The unexpectedly bright smile you gave him was so full of unhindered joy over such a dumb question that his breath caught in his throat and his pulse raced beneath his warm skin. I'm glad. And yeah, but you're weird too, so tough shit. You stared at him for a moment before clearing your throat and chugging your water, suddenly feeling very parched. Thinking back to your conversation earlier with your friend, it would have been so easy to ask something else, to let everything slip, but you kept it platonic, and it paid off. Katsuki Bakugou thought of you as a friend. If that wasn't a brilliant regard from someone as difficult as him, you didn't know what was. Seeing you chug water as though you'd just come out of a burning building forced him to blink away his embarrassment and hide the blush that threatened to spread across his face. It was stupid how much he enjoyed seeing you smile, so agreeing to this temporary friendship felt worth it. Your eyes cut to him, and he got the impression from your body language that you wanted to ask something else.
What?
You nearly choked on your water after realizing you were staring. Huh? Oh, nothing. Oh, wow. I'm tired. Glad tomorrow's Friday. I'm ready for the weekend. This was a desperate deviation tactic to change the subject now that you'd gotten the answer you hoped for regarding something that had been on your mind all week. Alcohol, for once, proved to be helpful in giving you the push you needed to put yourself out there. Just a little. Before you knew it, your eyes started to drift closed as the need for sleep overcame you, but you blinked and forced them open to finish your glass of water first. Exhaustion from staying up far later than usual didn't help keep Bakugou's eyes open as he watched you nearly fall asleep sitting up. He'd seen you trip over your own feet enough times that the last thing he wanted was for you to end up on the floor. Because you fell off the couch. Nothing else. No other fucking reason whatsoever. He nearly bit his tongue at the stray thought that flashed across his mind before shaking his head free of his apparent imagination. He watched you stand up, wobbling a bit before planting your feet firmly on the ground. Well, time for sleep, I think. Let me just... As you walked past him towards the kitchen with your glass and phone, a feeling deep down in his gut, call it a hero's intuition, made him stand up as well. Hardly a second later, he watched you pitch forward, glass in hand, straight towards the floor, but he caught you around the waist before you turned into a groaning pile. You thought you could make it to the kitchen to put away your empty glass and head straight to bed. Bakugou wasn't mad at you anymore, and the two of you were friends for however long this lasted. Great. Perfect. No problem. Too bad your wobbly feet had other ideas and caused you to fall forward not even halfway to the kitchen. You shut your eyes and gripped the glass tightly, waiting for the ground to come up and meet you, but it never did. A strong arm wrapped around your midsection and held you off the floor. You peeked one eye open and felt yourself rise up until you regained your balance and your feet were once again planted firmly on solid ground. With a gaping mouth, you watched as Bakugou let go of you, snatched the glass out of your hand, and shook his head at you in disbelief.
You are the clumsiest person I've ever met. Don't move.
Tonight would be a night of unexpected firsts, that was for sure. Because as soon as Bakugou set your glass down in the sink, he stomped back over to you with a look of determination before literally scooping you up into his arms. You yelped as he said something about not falling and breaking your damn neck, but you couldn't make out a thing. Your mind was too busy screaming itself hoarse as you felt his arms under your knees and against your back and his chest against your arm. Too stunned to talk and too paralyzed to move, you just let Bakugou carry you to your bedroom as you covered your burning face with one hand and held your phone with the other. Practically kicking the door open, he walked into your dark room and set you, well, more like gently tossed you, down onto your bed before pointing a stern finger in your face.
Go the fuck to sleep.
With that very clear statement, Bakugou turned around and closed your bedroom door with a slam, leaving you in the dark. It was a split-second decision to take matters into his own hands, literally, to avoid you falling on your ass and winding up with yet another bruise. You weighed little in his arms, and some disembodied voice nagged him that it wasn't such a bad feeling, but he vehemently ignored it. He dared not look at your face with his ears burning before setting you down, giving you a final order, and escaping with his dignity intact. You weren't sure how long you sat there, completely dumbfounded, instead of going to sleep. Every atom in your body screamed right into the void at having been picked up for a second time by Bakugou. And he carried you to your bed in his very strong arms. You'd definitely dreamed some stray storyline that followed this rough plot before, but never imagined it would actually come true. It had felt far better than you imagined it had any right to feel. After the shock and awe of it all wore off, exhaustion hit you once more. You sunk into the cool sheets of your bed and buried your face in your pillow as embarrassment lulled you to sleep. Meanwhile, as soon as Bakugou shut your door, he ran his hands down his face to get his shit together after that little stunt. He was determined to sleep like a fucking baby tonight, even if stray thoughts of your warm smile and cute face just... Fuck. No. Absolutely not. He nearly brushed the enamel right off his teeth from how vigorously he scrubbed, wishing he could scrape his mind clean with minty freshness. Eventually, he turned out all the lights and threw his tired body onto your couch, burying himself in your blankets like a cocoon. Compared to the previous night, at least, tonight wasn't so bad, really.
Friends? Fine. That's it. Nothing else. Nothing more.
Guys, this is so freaking up. This is like the 5th helicopter or plane or whatever aviation machine is flying above. God damn it. I'm trying to record, please. Oh my god, I just want to record in peace. I want to touch his butt. You clamped a hand down on your mouth as your friend... I hit my teeth. Ow. Swishing around the last drops of beer in her own can. I can't bloody fucking believe this. How many bloody helicopters are there? Oh! Bollocks! Smooth like butter, like a criminal undercover. Gone pop like trouble breaking into your heart like that. Ooh, cool shade stunner. Yeah, I owe it all to my mother. Hot like summer. Yeah, I'm making you sweat like that. Break it down. Oh, when I look in the mirror, I'm at your heart in it too. I got the superstar glow, so ooh, do the boogie like side step right left to my beat. High like the moon, rock with me, baby. Know that I got that heat. Let me show you 'cause talk is cheap. Side step right left to my beat. Get it, let it roll.
That sounds so stupid.
I apologize for the terrible singing.